sets of couples that had to get a legal divorce so that they didn't have to drain their bank account. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Retirement Fundamentals. I am your co-host Kylee Mollotte, joined with Ryan Anderson. Today we are going back to our roots, Medicare. So we're going to go over what Medicare is, what it isn't, where it's great, where it falls short, and how to fill in the gaps, because believe it or not, there are a few gaps. So we're going to get into it. We're going to go over original Medicare today. So we'll start off with Ryan.
All right. Now, thing about it is that we work with people every week. We work with folks that are out there that this whole podcast is designed for people that are in retirement and approaching retirement. And we get regular as inquiries, questions. People send us and email us questions all the time, and we try to answer as many of them as we can in each of these different episodes. And one of the common questions we get asked about is Medicare, just basic Medicare. So today, again, that's where Kylie and I, when we started in the insurance world, years and years ago, that's where we cut our teeth in. So today we're going to talk about basic Medicare, specifically parts A and B. This covers your hospital room and board. If you have worked your 40 requisite quarters, this is something that you've earned. It's a privilege to you. And what it does is that if you go into the hospital days 1 through 60, there is no daily cost for that. There is, however, a one-time $1,632 deductible you have per incident or per stay, as far as, and there's some definitions there that we could kind of go down and refine for that hospital visit. And you can go in there, and if you can stay there for up to 150 days, and Medicare will cover it at varying levels. So days 0 to 60, no cost after that deductible. Days 61 to 90, the daily cost is $408. Days 91 to 150, the daily cost is $816. Now, at the time of this recording, we are in July of 2024. These numbers change every year. So if you're listening to this in 2026, 2028, and beyond, these numbers most likely have changed, and so you're going to want to go get more up-to-date information. Now, the thing about it, though, is that this covers, again, it's for hospital stays specifically. And any questions on that, Kylie?
Yeah, so you're right. 150 days in the hospital, that's nowhere you want to be. But the hospital, if we're being honest, they don't want you there either. So let's say you're well enough to leave, but you're not well enough to go home. Where are they going to send you?
They're going to send you to a skilled nursing facility as a general rule. Now, the thing about it is that skilled nursing is covered under Medicare. They will cover up to 100 days of skilled nursing. Now, this is all part of Medicare Part A once again. You don't have any out-of-pocket cost to have this benefit. There is a cost potentially to use it. So days 0 through 20, or day 1 through 20, there is no cost for it. Days 21 through 100, the daily cost is $204. Day 101 and beyond, you're completely on your own. Medicare is not going to cover that. But now the thing about it is that there are some rules for them to even cover that first 100 days. You have to have a qualifying event. For most people, that's a few days in the hospital and transferring from the hospital to a skilled nursing facility. And so let's just say you are sick, you are ill and you're weak, and so you need some time to rebuild your muscle strength, or you've fallen down and you've had to have a hip replacement, or some other surgery where there is a recovery period that's important and that is really needed in order to get you back to where you need to be. You go to a skilled nursing facility. And the thing about it is Medicare will cover you as long as you're improving. And I want to be really clear with that. If you are getting better each day and improving, no problem, Medicare will cover you within the days I've already described. However, if you get to a point of time where you plateau and you are no longer improving, you're just staying level, your coverage stops. Now, I want to be really clear here. I did not say you were better. I said you've stopped improving. You can be incontinent. You can be unable to walk, unable to feed yourself, unable to dress yourself, unable to bathe yourself. But if you're not improving, Medicare won't cover you. They're going to send you home and you've got to figure something out.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had a client actually who this did happen to. She went into the hospital. She broke her ankle. She lived alone, and she was having some mobility issues. like we do, right? When we get older, things don't work as well. And so she was having some mobility issues, and she ended up falling down her steps, her front steps, and broke her ankle. So she went into the hospital, and she was well enough to leave, but not well enough to come home because she lived alone. So she didn't have anyone there to help her. So they did send her to a skilled nursing facility. Well, sometimes that's just how it happens, right? That's the qualifying event. Sometimes something little happens and then it trickles in and then it affects your entire well-being and in your entire health. So she only thought she was going to be in there for, I don't know, 10, 15 days, and then she would go back home. Well, she actually never ended up leaving. So that skilled nursing facility turned into a long-term care facility for her. And you're right, after day 100, they were Medicare completely shut off, and that was up to her to cover. So we're in meetings all the time, and this might ring a bell for you. I've sat in front of a ton of people saying, that's never going to happen to me. Nope, I'm not that type. Throw me out back and bury me out back, and I'll be fine. And it just blows my mind because there's statistics out there. Like, we're not just making this up, right? So 70% of us are going to need some sort of long-term care. So people are like, perfect, I'm not a part of the 70. Well, you are a part of the 30 who's married to the 70. I mean, you don't escape helping with long-term care. You just don't. Whether it's going to be you or your spouse or your parents or maybe even your children, there is someone in your life that you know very close who has had to deal with long-term care, short-term care. And when it comes to Medicare and the nuances of it, it's important to be informed so you know exactly what's going on. So if you are in that situation, you know what to do about it.
The thing about it is you talked about that as far as that 70 and 30. No, it's not going to be me. It's going to be somebody else. And it's amazing to me how often people think about, oh, that's something that happens to other people, which is true until it happens to you. Absolutely personal story here. As far as my wife and I were relocating from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho down to Boise, Idaho, like a year and a half ago, something like that. March 1st, we're moving down here, and the last week of February every year is our Mexico week. We go down there and we just have an enjoyable time and just love it. And we've got friends that have figured this out and family that have figured this out. And so it's a group. We're having a party down there. And we called my wife's mother the day we left, and all right, everything's good and grand. We come home a week later. During that week, she'd fallen down and couldn't get up. A neighbor found her, and which is a horrifying experience for a lot of people. And she went into the hospital. Well, they over the course of just the next few days, they discovered she had a brain tumor. So my wife and I were moving back to Idaho, and we've got 5 kids. Our youngest one was moving out at that point of time. So we were empty nesters, and we were excited about this. And we were literally empty nesters for 6 hours when we found out that her mom had a brain tumor, had to have surgery, was going to go into a skilled nursing facility, and couldn't live on her own after that. So she came and lived with us for several months. And then, so I mean, that was not on our plans. That was not on the agenda at all. And luckily,
Well, and she was
oh
healthy,
yeah, yes,
right? She was healthy, living on her own. How old is she, Ryan? Remind
77
me.
at that point in time.
So she's young.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, young in the terms of retirement. She's young, so she could live on her own. She was living independently. I bet if you would have asked her, hey, are you ready for anything like that? What is she going to say? Same thing everyone else says. Oh, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not worried about it.
She didn't have, the only symptoms she had was that she felt lethargic. There was no headaches. There was no sensitivity to light. She was just lethargic. And so she sat in her chair all day and watched TV. She lived by herself. What else is she going to do? I mean, that was my thought process. I didn't think anything of it. She has since had the tumor removed, and the doctor said it was the second largest tumor he'd ever seen. It's about the size of your fist, right in her frontal lobe there. It was non-cancerous, which was wonderful. And since then, she's got a new lease on life. She's out there working in the art. She's going to the community center. She's doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, wow, there were a lot of ways that her life was being impacted, but it happened so gradually, we didn't even know it. So with that, we had no idea that there was something wrong. We just thought she was slowing down in her advancing age. We had no idea there's going to be a brain tumor, and we had no idea she was moving in with us. But that moves us on to the next part of Medicare Part B, or basic Medicare. It's Medicare Part B. This is the doctors, the nurses, the labs, the x-rays, your skilled labor. And the thing about it is that this is the part of Medicare you pay for. The current today's monthly premium on this is $174.70. That's up about $10 from last year. And this is that premium generally comes out of your Social Security. They just kind of deduct it from there. And that will cover 80% of your, again, medical costs, doctors, nurses, labs, x-rays, that kind of stuff. They cover all of that with 20% left to you. But there's a big caveat, a big but right there. And that is there is no limit to that 20%. If you go through and you have a major event, a heart transplant, a cardiovascular transplant, cancer, something like that, where there's a long term course of treatment, it is wonderful that you've got coverage, but they're going to cover 80% of it. That 20%, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's all on you unless you have some other way to take care of it.
Yeah. And our listeners know, I mean, they're either approaching or they're already in retirement. They know how much a doctor bill costs. So you can only imagine whether that's bills $1,000 or $100,000, 20% can go pretty quick. And so can $100,000. I mean, when you're going to the hospital and a Tylenol is $40 and a warm blanket is $50, you can only imagine what they're adding on there. Unfortunately, and this is just the reality, the number one reason for bankruptcy in America is what, Ryan?
Medical costs.
Yeah. So this is a big deal, and this can and will affect your retirement if you don't plan properly. I mean, no one thinks, hey, I have my 401k and I'm going to spend it on medical bills, right? That's our job as agents. That's our job as retirement specialists, as asset protectors, to prevent that from ever coming out of your mouth. Right? We want to protect you. We don't want you to say, oh my gosh, I worked my butt off my entire life and I just had to spend it on my medical bills. I mean, I've sat down with multiple sets of couples that had to get a legal divorce so that they didn't have to drain their bank account. Could you imagine? I mean, just the psychological toll that would take on you to be married for 50, 60, 70 years and then have to get a legal divorce because one of you needs some long-term care help.
This is why being an asset protector is such a big deal, protecting people from their health to their wealth and everything in between. And as we sit down with folks, this is what retirement fundamentals is all about. That as people are in that retirement red zone, that 5 years before retirement to the 5 years after retirement and beyond, that this is a big deal. These are the things that weigh heavy on their minds, and the decisions they need to make here can impact them for the rest of their life. Now, that's actually what our next episode is going to be on. Is this is Medicare Part A and B. What do we do to make up that 20%? How does the Medicare Part C or Medicare supplements or the prescription drug plans, how do they play into this? And so stay tuned next week. That's what we're going to be talking about. Now, before we end and we move on to that, there's something that's really important. These podcasts are designed for folks that are in retirement, and we want them to be as meaningful to you as possible. If you've got a question, if you've got something that has been weighing heavy on your mind, click the link below and go ahead and send us an email, and we'll happily go ahead and see if we can answer that for you. If you would like help with your Medicare or some other aspect of retirement, go to retirementfundamentals.org. Click to set up an appointment to visit with one of our trusted advisors, and we can help you with that. Our goal is really simple: leave you better than we found you.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. Today we went over original Medicare. Next week, like Ryan said, we're going to go over Part C and Medicare supplements. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much. Have a good one.